for public office was something that was in my blood, right? I'm the son and grandson of Cuban exiles, so at the dinner table, my parents always talked about the importance of being involved civically, right? Active citizenship, which is so important. Bob Graham, who's the founder of Miami Lakes, would always talk about that. I first wanted to be a marine biologist. I ended up finding out my mom put me in marine biology camp. I get seasick easy, so that career was over. But when I went to college, I became enamored with politics, and I loved the science of politics. So started getting involved, and I said, you know what? It's time for me to make a difference. Get off the sidelines and jump in. And if I felt that I could do a better job than the folks that were there, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm actually going to jump in and do it, and that's something that we've done, and we've been very successful doing that.
Awesome. And your future aspirations?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Right, and I'm a big believer that the sky's the limit for all of us, as long as you're not afraid to fail. You know, too many times we put the brakes on things that we want to do in life because we're afraid, right? Denzel Washington would always say it, right? Fail big. You know, if you're gonna fail forward, fall forward. But I don't know yet. I just got reelected to a new 4-year term, so in November. So we'll see. In the next 2-3 years, I'll make a decision. But right now, really enjoying it. Everything that we've done, the fruits of our labor is really starting to show here in our community, and it's something I'm really proud of.
What is your take on on education right now, especially in this time of COVID?
I think it's very difficult. I saw some of the stats just yesterday. The amount of kids that are regressing, which is very concerning to me. To see that we've worked very hard in the last 20 years, I think, throughout the nation to provide different educational choices and services, to see huge gains really throughout our country, and now seeing some of those gains wiped out, it's tough to see that. But I do appreciate, you know, the private sector, places like Full Potential that step in and provide that extra push, you know, that a lot of kids might need, because the reality is, one size doesn't fit all, right? It's not, you can't say, hey, everybody can learn virtually. That's not the fact. You know, there are some kids that can learn virtually, they'll do fantastic, but there's a lot of kids that can't do that, and I think it's really important to provide them with the real choices to their families.
Awesome. So you actually touched the point of the next. So what message or advice would you give to parents on the importance of educational wellness? And when I mean wellness, I mean like confidence in what they know, that they feel good about what they're learning.
Listen, it's difficult right now, right? Because and this is where there's a huge divide in our country, I think, when it comes to education. There are schools that are doing phenomenal things with online learning, and then there are other schools, other school districts or whatnot, that are failing kids, right? That they're maybe logging on for an hour here and there, sending them work, telling kids pretty much to teach themselves. And I think it's really important to encourage those kids. Think about it. We were that age. And I was getting a book, and they were telling me, hey, you got to learn on your own. I wouldn't know what to do, you know? So I think a lot of kids are successful at that, but there's a lot that don't. So we got to encourage them. We got to let them know, you know, the pandemic, it's going to make us stronger, but we can't give up on those kids. We got to make sure that no child is left behind during this pandemic.
Okay. And talking about school, how has your education shaped your career?
Oh, it's been huge. Just those experiences in school is something that's led me to what I'm doing today, to be very honest with you. Especially, you know, during those formative years that are your high school years, then you hit those first 2 years of college. I mean, those were so vital. Now looking back, you know, I see it, and it was so vital, leading me to where I'm at today. Yeah. But that foundation, it needs to exist. It needs to be strong to be successful in the future. And that's why I tell everybody, set that strong foundation, work hard, sacrifice, be dedicated. But those formative years are junior year in high school, maybe through sophomore year in college. Those 4 years are so formative for your future. I mean, I tell kids all the time, you have to take it serious, you know. So.
And which teacher has influenced you the most? And we're talking about more like in elementary, middle school, high school.
Yeah, that's tough for me to because they all had an impact. I mean, every single teacher added something along the way. Even the teachers that maybe gave me a detention or whatnot, that taught me something along the way. So it was always, to me, my first teacher was my grandmother, you know, and she had passed away in 2016, but she was the one that kind of raised me my first 4 years of life. And you know, I think that starting off on that point in life was really, really important. But those lessons that she had taught me. But yeah, throughout my years, I would say it's every single teacher that I had instilled something in me along the way. So it's really hard for me to pick one or the other. There were some that really encouraged me more than others. That told me, hey, you can do it. Other were, it's kind of hard, when you're that age. But yeah, every teacher that I had really left some bigger than others, but some impression, positive impression with me.
And you talked about familial encouragement. Why is that so important right now, especially right now?
Oh, listen, I'm a perfect example of that. My parents, I could only imagine if I were in this pandemic as a student. I talk to my kids all the time, even when they get frustrated. I give them a hug. I tell them, hey, don't worry about it. We'll get through it. If you don't get an A right now, we'll work towards that. But don't, be encouraged by at least that progress that you're making. But I'm a perfect example. My parents would encourage me every single morning. Man, I'll never forget. My mom would come into my room and pray over me before she went over to work to make sure that I had a good day and everything was good, and put holy water in my forehead. But that was something that was instilled because she understood that positive reinforcement, and keep talking about positive reinforcement throughout the way, how important that is. So I do it with my kids, and I think it's really important that parents do that every single day. Even when we get frustrated, I always make sure I have a time of the day, especially toward where I talk to both of my kids and sit them down and hug them and tell them I love them, but and just encourage them overall. I think that's really, really now more than ever, and during this pandemic.
And what is your vision for the post-COVID education system?
I think it's taught us a lot, right? It's taught us that virtual learning is going to have some sort of role going forward, right? That we can take virtual learning to another level, and I think it's really important. But more than anything, I think we're starting to see those holes that maybe traditional education had, and that's where I really believe institutions like Full Potential can step in and really enhance those services. Supplement what a charter school is doing, what a public school is doing, what a private school is doing. The reality is, we need to empower parents more. We need to empower kids, and I'm a big believer in that. I never believe one size does not fit all. That thought process. So to me, what that's going to do, it really is going to instill more educational choices going forward. Be it after school choices like Full Potential that come in and reach that goal, or ensuring that the virtual learning sphere is there, because you're going to see a lot of folks opt into virtual learning going forward. I mean, a lot of schools have done that, and I think they've been successful. But it's important that parents have that choice.
Right.
You always got to strive for that, right? You never. Mediocrity to me is something that's not. We don't strive for that, right? You have to always set the bar high. Something we do in City Hall every day. We don't say, hey, whatever happens. No, we pride ourselves in what we do, and that's, to me, it's not. I tell everybody, if you're looking for a job just to make money, that's on you. But you got to look for a passion, right? If you love what you're doing, the money will end up coming. I mean, I remember when I first started as an aide in the legislature, I barely made anything, and I would work 14 hours a day, living in Tallahassee, not knowing anybody. But I loved what I did, and it's kind of led me to where I'm at today. So you always not only reach for excellence, but you got to love what you do, be it here at Full Potential, be it the town, and that's what I tell our employees at City Hall. If you don't love what you do, if you're here just for a paycheck, you got to have that thought process. Hey, you got to love what you do, but also think about making an impact in society as a whole too. So I think that's something that's really, as part of excellence, is so important. But having that impact in society and loving what you do, I think, is part of reaching that full potential, right? So
yeah.